What's going on, everybody? It's Gary Payton. Y'all know, y'all call me the glove. First, I want to give a shout out to Giovanne, doing great work in MYSTI, Washington. He's out there fighting for the homeless and changing lives every day. And I love that. He was born in Seattle wearing a pair of my gloves. You know what I'm saying? My gloves. Love it for him. Appreciate that. And now he's bringing the same powerful things that he's been doing and his voice and the word on the Giovanne Show. Right? He's getting a podcast. I love it for him. So don't just watch his show. Don't just do that. From the sidelines, subscribe, tune in, and support. You gotta support this, man. This guy is trying to do something positive, and you guys gotta be out there to look at it. The movement is coming straight. The state of Washington, you know that. I wouldn't be giving him shots out if I didn't support him. So you know this. This is Gary Payton, and I'm signing in into the Giovanne Show. It's official, baby. It's official. Coming soon. Let's go Seattle.
You heard it here first. Gary Payton said he loves
the Giovanne Show. It's a marathon. So let's get it.
Today on
the Giovanne Show. What first drew you into nonprofit?
We are serving about 60,000 people every year. Asking for help is really a strong move to secure a better future for you. I was in the foster care system in East Oakland, and I was also homeless, and now I'm leading a really important organization.
This episode of The Giovanne Show is brought to you by MYSTI's Adult and Family Services, currently serving in 2 locations, that's Washington State and California, changing lives by not only providing hope, but also housing support, case management, and community with social services and access to food and financial resources. Don't forget to subscribe to Sachere.com, SCHACHERE.com. Again, that's SCHACHERE.com to check out the latest blog updates on the Giovanne Show for behind-the-scenes stories and the latest from the social services king himself, Giovanne Sachere. Now let's get into the show.
All right, well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the Giovanne Show, where we highlight leaders, change makers, and individuals who are truly impacting their communities. Today, I'm extremely honored to have Miss Jazmyn Brown, the queen of Eden I&R, Chief Executive Officer. She brings over 17 years of experience in the nonprofit sector with a strong focus on equity-driven programming, trauma-informed care, and culturally responsive community engagement. As a Yay area native with deep roots in Alameda County, she leads with both professional expertise and lived experience. Jazmyn, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me and everything that you're doing for our community as well.
I appreciate that. I'm trying to do a little something to just make sure that people can get up on their feet, Yeah. So before we get into the work, I always like to start here. So for people that's just meeting you for the first time through this podcast, how do you describe who Miss Jazmyn Brown is?
I am a mom. I'm a leader in a lot of different capacities within my community and own personal life. And I'm somebody that has been very much shaped by the systems that I've navigated myself. And I have a very specific approach to how I move through life from that lens because it was very impactful for me growing up in different systems and navigating different systems and then accessing support. And so I find that to be a really big part of who I am, my life, what I value, and how I prioritize how I spend my time and what I focus on. And so I'm very much rooted in my community and the work that I'm doing from a personal and professional level because of my own experience.
Yeah, I mean, that lived experience is so powerful, right? Like it helps you to understand everybody's situation in a way that, you can't just write down or read from. You have to know, to be able to get them where they need to be. So it's important. Yeah. So you're a Bay Area native, right? And you have a deep connection to Alameda County. So how's that shaped the way that you've been leading and serving?
So I was in the foster care system in East Oakland, and I was also homeless and in and out of juvenile hall and the justice system. And so I initially got into the work because when I was about 17, I was on ankle monitor and I couldn't leave the house except to volunteer at this youth program that I was a part of. And in me doing that, I really found the work to be meaningful for me. I was volunteering at a youth center with other young women that had really similar experiences to me. And it was the first time that I was around people where I wasn't being judged for all of the things that I had been enduring. And other young women were sharing about their experience. And it just felt very healing to be a part of their healing. And so that's how I got introduced to the work, but it's also how I show up as a leader today, because I'm in rooms where there's conversations about policies and funding and things that are directly impacting our community. And I get to be a voice not only as a professional, but because of my lived experience, and really represent the communities that I'm supporting so that our voices can be a part of the systems that are impacting some of the most vulnerable and marginalized communities in Alameda County. And so it very much influences my leadership and my work in general.
Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing. And those are some big rooms that you're in, really influencing how funding is getting dispersed around the county, like you said, for those vulnerable communities, right?
Yeah.
So what first drew you into nonprofit? I mean, you're telling a story about like your background and then, you being a part of that program that just kind of brought everything to you. Is that like your inspiration, or like what first, like what would be like your grounded like reason for wanting to do nonprofit and community centered work?
That was definitely initially my introduction into the work, and why I decided to move forward with that as a career path is my own personal experience and seeing it can be useful to other, young women and people like me. And so I started doing a lot of direct service work, so like case management and just facilitating groups with marginalized communities. But I grew to really become passionate about the providers that were providing services, because that was me, but I also had the experience of how impactful it was to have providers in my life during a time that was very tumultuous and actually show up for me in a way that made me feel supported. It made me feel hopeful about the future because I had somebody or a group of providers kind of in my corner. And that really made a big difference in how I felt I had the actual opportunity to create a different life for myself. But I also have the experience of receiving services that felt very disconnected and just didn't feel good. And so as I continued working in nonprofits, I not only wanted to provide direct services, but I also wanted to support the providers who were actually working in these organizations and in these communities with the skills and knowledge that really only comes from having that combination of lived experience and professional experience. And I wanted to make sure that they understood the communities that they were serving and that they understood how to develop the skills to make impactful and sustainable change. And so it was a combination of, my own experience providing direct services. Obviously, it was very rewarding to work with individuals in my community and see them move through these really difficult times. But then it was also very rewarding to me to work with providers and other leaders at organizations and see them go from wanting to help, but sometimes missing the mark because they didn't really have that insight, and being able to provide them with the tools to shift how they delivered services. And it really made a big change in their own leadership as well as the people that they were supporting. So that's kind of been my journey through nonprofit.
Yeah, and don't you think like that makes like the community stronger? Like it makes it a lot more whole?
Absolutely, because a lot of times what I have seen is people that are receiving services like myself often step into provider roles, and a lot of the providers and leaders within these community organizations, I'm sure you have your own personal experience. They're from the community and they were impacted similarly to what I'm naming by somebody else that invested in them, whether it's time, resources. So it's a trickle effect throughout the community to be able to provide that support.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, that's definitely like a similar story for me. It's just, wanting to make sure that, I am helping each client, or my team is helping each client to be able to access everything that they qualify for, because one way is never the way. I think you need to take like 50,000 steps sometimes just to get to that housing or that treatment or whatever it ends up being. That's an obstacle on your way to stability. So a lot of agencies do miss that mark because we're just trying to like check the box,
Right.
And it's a human being that we're dealing with too. Human beings are complex. You cannot check off a box and have that represent what that human being needs at any given time. So that's the way we look at it in my organization. I train my team to look at it like that. Every partner in the community is an important component in the relationships, because the first part of it is knowing that you have a partnership with them, but the second part is having a good relationship with that partnership, within that partnership, so that you can facilitate any issues, to the right departments, or, to be able to help clients in a more collaborative way. So I want to jump into the 211 thing, because we're talking about, collaborating and bringing all these resources together. For listeners who may not be familiar, tell us, what is Eden I&R, and why is 211 such an important service in Alameda County?
So Eden I&R operates Alameda County's 211 system, which allows any resident within Alameda County to call 211, and we connect them to all different kinds of human service support, including housing services, domestic violence support, mental health, medical care, food resources, whatever the needs are of our callers. We're able to connect them through providing them referrals to community-based organizations. And it is such an important part of the community because it's not just another program, it's actually basic community infrastructure, because a lot of times 211 is the first step that residents look to when they don't really know how to navigate a certain situation that's very overwhelming, like homelessness, like not, having enough to provide basic needs for themselves, like food, like not having access to medical insurance, like families that are fleeing domestic violence. And so it's one thing to go on Google, but a lot of times there's not a lot of up-to-date information. And so it's such an important resource within the community, not only because we are providing tailored resources and support, but a lot of times the majority of our team actually is from the community, and they have used 211 a lot of times. And so it's not just somebody that they're being connected to that has a list of resources. It's somebody that has often navigated similar circumstances, and we work really hard to build partnerships within the county so that we're able to support whatever callers' needs are. And so it's actually a really important resource for our community members to have access to.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, 211 is in a lot of places and done differently in a lot of places, but I would say it is absolutely important to be able to have that as a resource, and especially, with you serving Alameda County. I know this service is improving every single day. What does it actually look like, though, day to day, to lead the organization that's helping people access these resources in severe moments of crisis sometimes too, right?
It really depends on the day, but usually what I'm focusing on every day is a combination of building and growing our partnerships so that we can provide more coordinated services, actually advocating for the needs of our community at really high levels so that we can expand our resources and capacity to serve even more people, as well as equipping our team with the skills so that they are able to provide a level of support to our callers that actually feels helpful, and making sure that the team has what they need to be able to connect these residents to whatever the support is, because we are serving about 60,000 people every year. Our team is taking hundreds of calls all of the time. They're very intense. Everything from, a woman trying to escape domestic violence to a single mom that has just had their utilities shut off to an older adult that needs support getting food so when you are taking those kind of calls back to back to back every day, it is very it's emotionally intense. And so I really focus on how to make sure that the team is supported and that we're increasing our partnerships so we can actually be an effective resource for the community. So that is really my priority on a day-to-day is the team, our community-based partnerships, advocating for the needs of Alameda County so we can increase our resources to provide better services. That's kind of my day, depending on what day it is.
Yeah, it sounds like a very, very busy day. A very busy day. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of human crisis.
Mm-hmm.
That's human crisis that, can be like really tolling on staff. What are some of the biggest needs that you're seeing in Alameda County right now?
Well, the number one is always housing and homelessness prevention. Depending on the caller, the majority of our callers are needing housing support. They are either needing rental assistance, or they're already homeless, or they need utility support. So there's a high level of poverty within Alameda County, and 100% of our callers are low income. And there's also a housing crisis. And so the majority of our callers are calling for housing, but we also a diverse group of callers that also need other things, including shelters that are for gender-based violence survivors. We do serve a lot of seniors that don't necessarily have a support system, and think a lot of times people don't necessarily, I know for me coming into the role, that was something I didn't think about a lot, was how our older adult population is really struggling. A lot of them don't have families and they don't have transportation. They can't even eat. And so we are supporting that population as well with getting them connected to food services. So it really just depends, but housing is a big need. Also, a big part of our callers are Black single moms who are struggling not only with housing, but also with just basic infrastructure within their own lives to even be able to get a job, because they're already hungry. They're trying to, provide for their kids, and that's the case with a lot of our callers. And so housing is the main need, but there's so many layers that impact why so much of our community is housing insecure, including inequity, including an employment crisis, including health and navigating disability and different issues that make it more difficult for them to navigate these systemic barriers that ultimately lead to housing insecurity. It's pretty complex. So housing is the main one, but there's all these different reasons that are impacting that we help support people with as well.
Yeah, that's what, one thing I was thinking about when you said housing, but it's a lot, is the fact that y'all provide tailored support.
Mm-hmm.
Because each person's situation is it's similar, but it's different, right? There may be different complexities in each person's situation. So being able to provide that tailored support and recognizing that there are a lot of biggest needs, in the county is amazing. Kudos. Kudos for that. Sounds like 211 is really powerful. Like I said, there's not a lot of agencies that are thinking in that way. Maybe it is just resources that are being given out. The tailored approach, I think, is what makes it different. So what do you wish that more people understood about the individuals and families who rely on 211?
Hey guys, what's up? This is T-Waz the TOC, and I want to tell you about the Giovanne Show. Now guys, this is a powerful platform where real conversations are happening. About social services, mental health, community, leadership. So guys, I don't ever bring up nothing unless I think it's good. And you know what? This is so needed. So y'all really need to check out the Giovanne Show. Okay? God bless.
You heard it here first. T-Boz says it best.
The Giovanne Show. It's a marathon. So let's get it.
I really wish that, especially people that haven't found themselves in a situation where they themselves have called 211, a lot of times our callers are people that have just experienced one significant event that has led them to being in a situation where now they need support. And I say that because somebody that calls 211 could literally be anybody. And I think there's this disconnect between these people are in poverty and in high need, and there's a disconnect between being able to relate. And I really wish people could understand these kind of situations could happen to anybody. Anybody could experience job loss. Anybody could experience a health issue that really just complicates their entire life. And I feel like if people really looked at our community from that perspective of this could happen to me or, somebody in my family, it would evoke a different level of empathy and also inspire people to get more involved. I feel like there's this separation that kind of looks like that's their issue. Even if people do care, they don't really make the connection that, these are humans experiencing things that could happen to anybody, regardless of your socioeconomic background, culture. We have, callers that just lost their jobs and they were stable and feel really ashamed because they never thought they would be in a position to need to call 211. And so I think it's important for people to recognize these aren't special circumstances. They are, but they can happen to anybody at any level. And I would like to see more people understand that.
Yeah, it's important for people to be able to put their support behind initiatives that can support the entire community, which really does impact them. At the end of the day, it does impact you. You have more stable people, you're going to have a more stable community. Bottom line. So it does impact you. You have better schools, better education, better everything is going to impact you. So it's not disconnected.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So your leadership at you just mentioned culture. What type of culture are you building at Eden I&R?
You know what? I have to say that Eden I&R is so special because I have never been at an organization where so much of the team is people that have lived experience. And there's a lot of 211 organizations that we partner with throughout California that are doing amazing work, but it is a really unique situation that our team represents where they're almost entirely from Alameda County and they have stories that very much reflect our callers. And so because of that, I'm lucky to come in where there's already this culture of genuinely caring about our callers. A lot of our team, all of our team has been there for years. And this is a field where there's usually a lot of high turnover. We're in a housing crisis already. And so we are, single parents ourselves and have different financial situations going on ourselves, and people still stay because they actually care about this community, and they've also been supported by 211 or other organizations, and they want to be a part of providing that same support, similarly to what I shared at the top of the call. And so for me, I really would like, and I'm trying to build a culture that uplifts that as a priority in terms of what we value. So as we're building our team, what matters more to me than professional experience or education, it is those things, but it is more important that there's a passion. And I feel like the lived experience makes such a difference, especially because we have to do a lot of advocacy. We have to be able to really empathize with these people that are in extremely traumatic situations. And while you don't have to have lived experience to do that, it makes a really big difference when the person that you're talking to, you're able to put yourself in their shoes because you've actually been there. And so I'm trying to build a culture where our team understands how powerful their lived experience and their dedication to the work is, and sharing that when I'm advocating for our community, because it allows other people to see how important our work is. When they see people from the community actually come and work here and they stay, when they see that our community members are calling and speaking with somebody that is able to relate to them. And so I'm really trying to build a culture that values lived experience, commitment to the work, but also that really protects staff as well as our callers. Because again, this is a very high burnout day that they're having every single day, taking these calls. And because they're so committed, I'm trying to build an intentional culture where we're taking care of them, we're encouraging them to take care of themselves, but we are also constantly engaging in development and education around how do we as providers show up more empathetic for our callers. Like, we do have the lived experience, but there's also all of these layers around equity and poverty and things that it's really important for providers to understand beyond the lived experience to actually provide the most effective solutions when they're, talking with people, to understand like this is somebody that's struggling with housing or domestic violence or whatever it is, but really being able to understand like what is under that, what are the systemic barriers that are causing 60,000 people every single year to be struggling with the same thing in this relatively, small community. And so I'm invested in building a culture that values lived experience, connection to the work, taking care of yourself, development, all of those things.
Yes, powerful things. Sounds like compassionate leadership, honestly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you previously served as the COO at San Francisco Safe House. So what did that experience teach you that you carry with you today?
That experience taught me so much about so many different things. First of all, when I was at San Francisco Safe House, a lot of times the first thing that we would do when we would get a new client would be to call 211. And so it just further validates for me how important 211 is, but also at San Francisco Safe House, we served a really diverse community that included, different cultures, but also a lot of clients that identified as being a part of the LGBTQ community, and at a level I had not supported before. And so it taught me a lot about the barriers that trans people face, a lot of the discrimination that they face. And there's a really big discrepancy because that was in San Francisco, and there's just a level of funding and resources available in that city that is unique to that city. Because to come back to Alameda County and serve as the CEO, we serve even more people than San Francisco Safe House did. But the city of Oakland, which is where most of our callers are coming from, doesn't have the same level of resources as San Francisco. And so it just presents a different set of challenges. And there's just a level of complexity in San Francisco with people that are struggling because of their own homeless crisis and what's happening in the Tenderloin district, which is where a lot of our clients came. There's just a high level of homelessness and addiction and discrimination, and it's just really complex because the city is much bigger and they have a lot of funding, and it's very supportive in a lot of ways to the organizations that are there providing the work, but there's clearly still a disconnect because we see there's the levels of homelessness and the ways that people are suffering. And so for me, it taught me that, and it made me very committed to this work even more, because it showed me there needs to be people that are in this work, that are advocating for these communities, that have actually experienced firsthand what these communities are experiencing and advocating at higher levels, because the disconnect is really significant, and it seems that there's more lived experience that's needed to advocate and actually make a more significant change, so that we're not seeing for years and generations to come an issue that seems to be getting increasingly more difficult because of just the influx of people coming from different states to San Francisco. And so it taught me a lot about advocacy. It taught me a lot about what different communities experience. And it just reaffirmed my own desire to get more involved in using lived experience in combination with professional expertise as a tool for advocacy at higher levels, so that lawmakers, policymakers, and people in these rooms get to actually hear from the communities that maybe they've never really talked to. So I learned a lot from that organization.
It's all very, very important. To try to stop the cycle. Like the cycle of homelessness continues. You call like a 211, or you get a resource, or you work with an agency, and they're not addressing all of the needs. Now it's a big deal, right? We're addressing the social determinants of health. That's the big philosophy going on right now within social work, is that, we address, we give people hope, person-centered care, and then we're making sure that we're trying to prevent the cycle instead of contributing to the cycle. And that's exactly what happens when you have people who are just by the book and not having that experience to back you up. Because if you went down there, and when you went down there was a totally different situation, and you're homeless and you only have a backpack and it's raining outside, all of those different things put together help you to be able to perform a lot better in the position, honestly. And a lot quicker. Not that someone who doesn't have lived experience cannot do the work. Absolutely can. Mm-hmm. Absolutely can. But it is something that is just truly important. So you mentioned how this lived experience has shaped your leadership. I want to know, how does that show up in how you advocate and make decisions right now?
I have had to do a lot of work around that because my experience was very traumatic. And at different times, I would stay by the book. I wouldn't necessarily share those things because how it just impacted me. But I realized in observing and being a part of these decisions and how programs and funding was administered, that was missing, that people making those decisions didn't understand. And so it motivated me to, I don't know if it's, divine or what, but I was able to survive the experiences that I endured. A lot of people weren't, and I'm here. And so I feel it's an obligation for me to be transparent around, actually, this community is experiencing this. And when we make these decisions, it leaves out this whole group of people, or it doesn't take into context, this thing that they're experiencing. And so now I'm very transparent. I'm not going to, share my whole story all the time, but I do make it a point to speak up and try to use the community's voice through my own experience when really important decisions are being made, or just in any conversation, especially where there's, providers that are trying to identify the best way to create services for the community, and there might not be any representation from the community, and they're well-meaning, but without that context of actually what our community needs, not just what it looks like we need. That's when it's problematic, because then when people are receiving services, that's when you start to feel a disconnect. I appreciate that the help is available, but if staff
it doesn't qualify for me.
If staff aren't, trained to effectively engage with these really vulnerable populations, that can cause harm. If we're, focusing on groups which are super important, but actually resources are needed to develop employment skills or give people an opportunity to have a deposit. And so I use, it shows up in my advocacy in that way, really pulling on my experience to help advocate for shaping services that are actually going to meet the needs of our community.
Hey guys, what's up? This is T-Boz the TOC, and I want to tell you about the Giovanne Show. Now guys, this is a powerful platform where real conversations are happening.
My position should never exist. Homelessness has become a business. It's a big business, man. It generates a lot of money. Again, there's no accountability with that money. We manage homelessness, right? I never say ending homelessness. I think we should stop saying that. We can't even manage it well, but we're talking about ending homelessness, right? We've been saying ending homelessness for years, and we ain't even managing it well.
Coming soon,
The Giovanne Show. It's a marathon. So let's get it.
Yeah, it's important. It's important. Speaking of, I mean, the work is heavy. The work is heavy, and that's a great sacrifice that you make to share your experience. So we definitely appreciate that. With the work being so heavy, though, like, what keeps you hopeful? What keeps you wanting to do the work?
I have the unique ability to reflect on how impactful different providers were in my life. I was connected to a lot of, services, being in foster care and being a young mom and being homeless and all of these things, and was very hopeless and was connected with and being supported by providers that shifted that for me entirely. And so reflecting now, I can see how it made the difference in me going from, I don't know if I'm even going to be able to make it or how, but having somebody, a provider in my corner, like actually, believing in me and helping me. And now I'm leading a really important organization. And so that is what gives me hope, is knowing that doing this work can have similar outcomes and hopefully even better outcomes in the lives of people like me in communities where, like the ones that I come from. And so even when it's really challenging, which it is, we're doing really hard and sometimes depressing work, I just reflect on, if there wasn't people doing the work when I needed it, I wouldn't be here. And so I hope to, have that impact on somebody, whether it's a provider, a community member. And so that trickle effect that we were talking about can continue to happen, so that hopefully I can inspire somebody to get into the work, and then they can, continue to give the gift that I received and keep, moving our community forward.
Yeah, or I would say the gift that keeps giving. As long as you give it, and you give it in a way that allows somebody to be inspired, then it will continue to keep passing along. And now, if there's one message that you want Alameda County residents to hear right now, what would it be?
I would want Alameda County residents to understand that asking for help is not a weakness, because I think, and I hear so many people express shame with asking for help because to them it signals that they did something wrong. And I really want Alameda County residents and really anybody that needs help to understand, like, there are a lot of things in place that make it hard for people to access resources and stability that are not our fault. And asking for help is really a strong move to secure a better future for you and your children, if you have them, or even just your own ability to be hopeful that you can be self-sufficient and have a future that you feel good about. But it does require asking for help. I am somebody that has literally slept outside, slept in my car, been in and out of jail, and I'm now leading a really important organization. And that is because I asked for help over and over again. And it was very embarrassing for me at a lot of different times. But reflecting now, I would not be able to help my community in this way had I not asked for help. And I see so many community members that call 211, and there's a lot of really powerful success stories of how asking for help changed the trajectory of their life. And so I really want Alameda County residents to understand asking for help is a sign of strength, and it can absolutely change the outcome of your life. And so don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to take advantage of all the resources that are available. And it really does take support to be able to do that, because you are not going to be able to know what is out there just on your own. You can get some resources, but in order to actually maximize the help that's available, asking for support is really going to help you be able to do that.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, there's a lot of stages of change. So, people are sitting in those places. And, that's another important component right there. I like to, as a reminder to myself as well, just, remind my staff to think about that. Sometimes we get really frustrated because the work is so heavy. Well, then you don't want it right now. I won't say that they don't want it. There's just a lot of mitigating factors that can be in somebody's way.
Mm-hmm.
Some good, some bad, some in between. But either way, it's something that we have to think about, especially when people come back into services or, they call back again, for assistance. And they haven't actually done the things that maybe you asked them to do, or maybe the resources you first gave them. Just being compassionate all the way around is going to really be the best way, I feel. When you look back on your leadership, I wonder, what do you want people to be able to say about, how you change the environment right now that you're working in at Eden I&R?
I would hope that people would say and be able to reflect on my leadership resulting in being able to provide even more impactful services to even more people and creating a culture that develops leaders from within our community through a pathway they didn't even know was possible. So being able to, I hope people would reflect on feeling poured into or inspired in a way where they recognize their own experience really has equipped them with the skills necessary to make an impactful change in their community, and that they don't, necessarily need to have 20 years of professional experience or a degree, that they feel like a level of confidence and value of the things that they have went through and experienced and how that can shape the community moving forward. And that we were able to not only provide resources, but also really help every single person that needed that support in Alameda County navigate the system in a much more intensive way through much more tangible support. Just being provided a list of resources, which we are working towards. So I hope in the future people are able to reflect on my leadership as being a part of making that change.
Yeah, making that transformation and making sure that, like you said, everybody is getting the right information at the right time. Sounds like you're working on increasing efficiency.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, Jazmyn, I want to say thank you so much for being here with me today, for the work that you're doing in the community in Alameda County, the access to resources, dignity, and support in a time of need for so many people throughout the county. It's really life-changing work. And I'm sure that the people who are watching, the people who are working for you, are working with you, working alongside you, the people who you're affecting every day are thankful. So thank you. And if you want to learn more about Eden I&R, access services through 211, you just need to Google it and you will find the information that you need, right? But it's a very special project. It's a very special situation that Alameda County has right now. 211 is working for a lot of people. Now, as always, this is the Giovanne Show, where we bring real conversations, real stories, and real impact at the forefront. We'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Welcome to the Giovanne Show, where real stories meet real solutions. I'm your host, Giovanne Show. I'm a social worker, entrepreneur, family man, and advocate for change. From the streets of LA and Seattle Central District, this is the space where we talk about resilience, culture, creativity, and the systems that shape our lives. Every episode, I sit down with voices you need to hear, from community leaders and social workers to artists and innovators, people who are making an impact and challenging us to think differently. So, whether you're here for inspiration as a social worker or advocate for change, insight, or just a conversation that feels real, you're in the right place. Join us live Make sure to subscribe at sasharay.com for updates and join us live on YouTube and everywhere else you listen and watch. This is more than a movement. This is more than a podcast. It's a marathon. So let's get it.